Sarah Chen walked into the massive chamber with her head held high. The walls stretched up so far she could barely see the ceiling. Strange lights floated everywhere, casting weird shadows that moved like living things. This was the heart of the Galactic Council, and she was about to receive the most important verdict in human history. The chamber buzzed with sounds no human throat could make. Clicks, whistles, harmonics that made her teeth ache. Representatives from dozens of alien species filled the curved seats that ringed the central floor. Some looked almost human. Others were so strange that Sarah's mind struggled to understand what she was seeing. The Zephyrians floated near the center like living glass sculptures. Their bodies shifted between solid and transparent, and when they spoke, their voices came from everywhere at once. The Threx looked like giant insects covered in metal plates, their compound eyes reflecting the chamber's lights like black mirrors. The Veltar moved as one mind in many bodies, each individual perfectly synchronized with the others, but it was the Corvins that made Sarah's skin crawl. They stood tall on 4 legs, with 4 arms and 4 eyes that never seemed to blink. Their ambassador had been pushing hardest for humanity's rejection from the Council. Every time Sarah looked at him, those 4 eyes stared back with obvious disgust. Sarah reached the speaking platform in the center of the chamber. The metal disc hummed under her feet, and suddenly her voice would carry to every corner of this vast space. She had practiced her speech for weeks, but now she wondered if it would matter. The Zephyrian Chancellor floated forward. Her form shimmered like heat waves rising from hot concrete. When she spoke, her words seemed to come from inside Sarah's own head. Ambassador Chen of Earth, the Chancellor began. Your species has been under review for full Council membership for 2 standard years. We have watched your expansion into the galaxy. We have studied your military practices. We have observed your diplomatic methods. Sarah felt her heart sink. The tone was wrong. This was not going to be good news. Humanity shows great potential, the Chancellor continued. Your technology advances quickly. Your people adapt to new worlds with impressive speed. You solve problems in ways that surprise even the oldest Council races. A few murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some of them sounded approving. Sarah allowed herself a moment of hope. However, the Chancellor's voice grew cold. Your species demonstrates concerning behaviors that cannot be ignored. The hope died in Sarah's chest. Humans expand too aggressively. You claim territory without proper consultation. Your military forces are larger than necessary for simple defense. Most troubling, you seem to view every disagreement as a potential conflict requiring force. The Corvin ambassador's 4 eyes gleamed with satisfaction. Sarah could see him barely containing his pleasure at humanity's coming humiliation. After careful consideration, the Chancellor announced, the Galactic Council denies humanity's application for full membership. The chamber erupted in alien sounds. Some species voiced approval with harmonic tones. Others clicked or buzzed their agreement. Sarah stood frozen on the platform as the weight of failure crashed down on her. But the Chancellor was not finished. Furthermore, humanity's provisional membership status is hereby revoked. All human colonies beyond the Sol system must be abandoned within 1 solar cycle. Your species will remain confined to your home system until you demonstrate the capacity for civilized behavior. Sarah found her voice. You're banishing us? Forcing us to abandon worlds where millions of humans live? The decision is final, the Chancellor replied. Human expansion threatens galactic peace. Your military doctrine is primitive and dangerous. You must learn to control your aggressive instincts before you can rejoin galactic society. The Threxy representative spoke up, his voice like grinding metal. The younger species often require guidance. Isolation will teach humans valuable lessons about their place in the galaxy. Sarah's hands clenched into fists. And if we refuse to abandon our colonies? The chamber fell silent. Every alien eye, sensor, or equivalent organ focused on the human ambassador. The Chancellor's form pulsed with dangerous energy. Then the Council will enforce compliance. Economic sanctions will cut off all trade with human worlds. Technology embargoes will prevent access to advanced systems your colonies need to survive. And if necessary, the Chancellor paused for effect. Direct military intervention will remove human presence from contested systems. The Corvan ambassador finally spoke, his voice dripping with false concern. We hope it will not come to violence. Surely humanity will see the wisdom in accepting council guidance. Sarah looked around the chamber at the assembled aliens. Species that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. Races that had achieved interstellar travel when humans were still discovering fire. They looked at her with expressions ranging from pity to outright contempt. How long? Sarah asked quietly. What? The Chancellor replied. How long do we have to evacuate our colonies? 1 solar cycle. Approximately 1 Earth year. Surely adequate. Time for an orderly withdrawal. Sarah nodded slowly. 1 year to abandon 23 worlds. 1 year to relocate millions of colonists. 1 year to destroy decades of human expansion into the galaxy. The Council is being generous. The Veltar collective spoke in perfect unison. Lesser species have been given much less time to comply with Council directives. Sarah activated her communication device and sent a priority message back to Earth. Just 4 words. The gloves are off. The Chancellor seemed satisfied. We hope humanity will use this time for reflection. Perhaps in a few decades, when your species has matured, you may reapply for provisional membership. A few decades? Sarah repeated. At minimum, the Council must be certain that humanity has truly changed before allowing your return to galactic society. Sarah looked around the chamber one more time. These aliens thought they had won. They believed they had put the dangerous young species back in its place. They expected humans to slink back to Earth with their tails between their legs. They had no idea what they had just unleashed. The Earth government will respond to your decision within the next few days, Sarah said formally. I assume you want our answer delivered here? That will be acceptable, the Chancellor replied. Though we hope humanity will accept this decision with dignity. Sarah smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. It was not a nice smile. Oh, we'll accept it, she said. We'll accept it completely. As Sarah walked out of the chamber, alien voices resumed their buzzing, clicking, and harmonizing behind her. They were probably discussing how to divide up the systems humanity would be forced to abandon. They were likely planning which species would benefit most from human withdrawal. None of them were thinking about what humans did when they were cornered. None of them understood that forcing humanity into isolation might not weaken them. Sarah reached the corridor outside the chamber and allowed herself one look back. Through the transparent walls, she could see the aliens celebrating their victory. The Corvan ambassador was receiving congratulations from several other species. They thought this was the end of the human problem. Sarah activated her communication device again and sent a longer message to President Webb. Banishment confirmed. 1 year to evacuate all colonies. Council threatens military action if we refuse. Recommend immediate implementation of contingency plans. Time to show them what happens when you back humans into a corner. As she walked toward her transport ship, Sarah began to smile again. The aliens had made a serious mistake. They had given humanity exactly what it needed, a common enemy and a clear deadline. The galaxy was about to learn why humans had conquered their own world before reaching for the stars. President Marcus Webb stood at the observation window of Luna Station and watched the last transport ship from the Kepler colonies dock with the orbital platform. The massive vessel was packed with refugees from humanity's abandoned worlds. Families who had built new lives among the stars were now coming home to a solar system they barely remembered. 2 years had passed since Ambassador Chen delivered the Council's ultimatum. 2 years of the most organized retreat in human history. 23 worlds evacuated. Millions of colonists relocated. Decades of expansion undone in less time than it had taken to build. The aliens were watching, of course. Council scout ships lurked at the edge of the Sol system, making sure humans were obeying orders. They saw the steady stream of transport, ships bringing people home. They recorded the dismantling of orbital platforms and industrial complexes. They documented humanity's apparent submission to superior alien will, but they were not seeing everything. Dr. Elena Vasquez walked up behind Webb, her footsteps silent on the station's carpeted floor. As director of the Human Defense Initiative, she knew every detail of what humanity was really doing during this so-called retreat. "The last transport just docked," she reported. "Operation Cocoon is now complete." Webb nodded without turning from the window. "Show me the final numbers." Elena activated her tablet and projected a holographic display between them. The three-dimensional map of the Sol system looked very different from what it had been 3 years ago. "Defense grid expansion is at 300% of pre-council levels," Elena said. "Every major asteroid has been converted into a weapons platform. Mars' orbital space is completely ringed with automated defense satellites." Webb studied the display. Red dots marked weapons installations throughout the system. There were thousands of them. "What about the shipyards?" "Mars construction facilities are operating at maximum capacity. We're building ships faster than we ever have before. The new automated systems we salvaged from abandoned colonies are working perfectly. That was the key to everything. When the Yabe Council forced humanity to abandon their worlds, they had assumed humans would simply walk away from everything they had built. Instead, every useful piece of technology had been stripped from every abandoned facility and brought back to Sol and advanced manufacturing equipment from the industrial worlds. Rare mineral deposits from the mining colonies. Experimental technologies from the research stations. All of it now served humanity's real purpose. "The Titan yards?" Webb asked. Elena smiled. "Ahead of schedule. We'll have our first Sovereign-class dreadnought ready for trials in 6 months. The design incorporates everything we learned from Council. Technology." Webb finally turned from the window. "Everything?" "Every scanner, every piece of equipment, every data core from every Council ship that ever visited our worlds. We've reverse-engineered their shields, improved their weapons, and developed countermeasures they never imagined possible." The holographic display shifted to show technical specifications. The new human ships were sleek predators that looked nothing like the crude, chemical-powered vessels the Council remembered. These ships moved with impossible grace, powered by fusion reactors that human engineers had perfected in the hidden laboratories of the outer system. "What about communications?" Webb asked. "The quantum entanglement network is fully operational. Every ship, every station, every major installation can communicate instantly, regardless of distance. If war comes, our forces will coordinate better than anything the galaxy has ever seen." Webb walked to another window that showed the construction platforms orbiting Mars. Massive skeletal frameworks surrounded half-built warships that bristled with weapons the Council had never seen before. The aliens thought humans were beaten and broken. They had no idea that humanity was building the largest war machine in galactic history. "And our little gift to the Council?" Webb asked with a cold smile. Elena's smile matched his. "The virus is embedded in every piece of technology we left behind. Every computer system, every navigation array, every communication device on every world we abandoned. When we activate it, every Council ship in the galaxy will lose hyperspace navigation simultaneously." "How long will they be stranded?" "Conservative estimate, 3 weeks minimum. Enough time for us to position our forces, wherever we want them." Webb nodded with satisfaction. The Council had made a critical error. They thought forcing humans to retreat would break their spirit. Instead, it had focused their determination like a laser beam. "There's something else," Elena said quietly. "Intelligence reports from our deep space monitoring stations." "What kind of reports?" "The Council species are getting comfortable. They think humanity is finished as a galactic power. Some of them are already discussing how to divide up the territory we'll never return to claim." Webb's expression darkened. "Let them get comfortable. Let them believe we're just another failed species hiding in our home system." Elena brought up another display showing the outer system. Beyond Neptune, where no Council scout had ever ventured, massive installations hung in the dark between distant asteroids. Each one was a fortress capable of housing entire fleets. "The Corvin ambassador has been particularly vocal," Elena continued. "He's been boasting to other Council members about how easily humanity was defeated. He says humans are proof that aggressive young species always destroy themselves." "Good," Webb said. Let him boast. Pride comes before the fall. The display showed more details of humanity's secret preparation. The asteroid belt swarmed with disguised warships. The moon bristled with railgun installations that could punch holes through capital ships. Hidden manufacturing facilities produced weapons and equipment around the clock. But the real surprise was what humanity had built in the dark spaces between worlds. Mobile battle stations that could crack planets, stealth ships that moved like ghosts through normal space, weapons that used principles the Council had never imagined. "How much longer?" Webb asked. 3 more years to complete primary construction. 5 years for full implementation of all defensive and offensive systems. Webb turned back to the window showing the refugee transports. Families were reuniting on the station's observation decks. Children who had been born on distant worlds were seeing Earth for the first time. The human cost of the Council's decision was enormous, but the Council was about to learn that cornering humanity came with an even higher price. "Elena, I want you to send a message to all department heads," Webb said. "Tell them the President said this. The galaxy wanted to see what happens when you humiliate humanity. They wanted to know what we do when we're forced to retreat. They're about to find out." Elena smiled. "What exactly should I tell them we're planning?" Webb's reflection in the window looked like a predator that had been caged too long. "We're going to build something the galaxy has never seen before. Not just a fleet, not just a defense force. We're going to build a sovereignty that will make every alien species reconsider their opinion of humanity. And when we're ready, we're going to teach the Galactic Council the most important lesson in human history. Never back a human into a corner unless you're prepared for what comes next." Outside the window, more transport ships approached Luna Station. Each one carried humans who had lost their homes because the Council decided humanity was too dangerous to be trusted with freedom. The Council was right about one thing. Humanity was dangerous. They were about to discover just how dangerous. Scout Captain Zektar guided his stealth ship through the outer edge of the Sol system with practiced ease. His vessel was invisible to primitive human sensors, or at least it should have been. The Corvan Supremacy had built the most advanced reconnaissance ships in the galaxy, and Zektar was one of their best pilots. The Council had sent him to verify that humanity was maintaining their quarantine. 5 years had passed since the banishment, and some Council members were growing concerned about the lack of information coming from human space. A few species worried that the silence meant humans were planning something dangerous. Zektar's 4 eyes focused on his sensor displays as he approached the asteroid belt. The Corvans knew humans were clever, but they were still a young species with primitive technology. How much trouble could they really cause while trapped in their home system? The first thing he noticed was the activity level. The asteroid belt should have been mostly empty space with a few mining operations. Instead, his sensors detected massive construction projects throughout the entire region. Ships moved between installations in carefully organized patterns that suggested military precision. "Impossible," Zektar whispered to himself. He activated his ship's most powerful sensors and focused on the largest asteroid. What he found made no sense. The massive rock had been completely hollowed out and converted into some kind of mobile fortress. Energy readings suggested weapons systems far beyond anything humans should have been capable of building. And there were dozens of them. Zektar guided his ship closer to get better readings. Every major asteroid in the belt had been transformed into a weapons platform or construction facility. Ships moved between them like worker insects serving a massive hive. But these were not the crude chemical-powered vessels the Council remembered from humanity's brief time among the stars. These ships moved with impossible grace, their hulls gleaming with energy fields that Zektar's instruments could not identify. "Sir," his sensor operator called from the back of the ship, "I'm detecting weapons signatures unlike anything in our databases. Those aren't plasma cannons or particle beams. The energy patterns are completely unknown." Zektar felt a chill run through his 4-chambered heart. He had been monitoring galactic military technology for decades. He knew every weapon system, used by every major species. These readings suggested something entirely new. He directed his sensors toward Jupiter and immediately wished he hadn't. Hundreds of warships hung in perfect formation near the gas giant. Not just destroyers and cruisers, but massive dreadnoughts that dwarfed anything in the Council fleets. Each one bristled with weapon systems that hummed with barely contained energy. How many ships? Zektar asked his sensor operator. At least 800 in the Jupiter formation alone, sir. But I'm detecting similar concentrations throughout the system. Mars' orbit shows 300 vessels. Saturn has another 400. The total count is... What? Over 2,000 combat vessels, sir. All of them using technology that doesn't match any known specifications. Zektar stared at his displays in shock. The Council's largest fleet contained 800 ships. The humans had built a navy 3 times larger than anything the galaxy had ever seen, and they had done it in complete secrecy. That was when every screen on his bridge went dark. For a moment, Zektar thought his ship had suffered a power failure. Then all the displays flickered back to life, each one showing the same message written in perfect Corvan script. Hello, Captain. We've been expecting you. Zektar's stealth field indicator began flashing red. His cloaking system was failing. Around his ship, space itself seemed to bend and twist as 12 human warships materialized from nowhere. The vessels were sleek predators that looked nothing like the primitive human ships he remembered. Their hulls rippled with adaptive armor that shifted from stealth black to mirror bright in seconds. Weapons ports opened along their sides like the eyes of sleeping giants awakening. A human face appeared on his main screen. The woman wore the uniform of a military officer, but her expression was harder than any soldier Zektar had ever seen. Her name appeared in translation: Admiral Jessica Torres. Your stealth technology is impressive, Captain, Admiral Torres said. But we've had 5 years to study every piece of Council technology you left behind when you blockaded our trading ships. We've improved it considerably. Zektar found his voice. This is impossible. The quarantine prevents you from... Quarantine prevents humans from leaving Sol, Torres interrupted. It says nothing about preventing aliens from entering our space. You've been in our territory for the past 6 hours, Captain. We've been tracking you since you crossed the heliopause. The Council will never accept this. You were ordered to remain isolated until we learn to behave like proper civilized species? Torres smiled like a predator. We've learned, Captain. We've learned that the galaxy respects only one thing: strength. Zektar's sensor operator spoke urgently. Sir, more contacts, dozens of them, they're everywhere. The captain looked at his displays and felt his world crumble. Human ships were appearing throughout the system, dropping their stealth fields to reveal the true scope of their preparations. Every major planet had fleets in orbit. Every asteroid had been converted into a fortress. The entire Sol system had become a massive military installation. This is your message to take back to the Council, Torres continued. Humanity formally rejects their authority. We claim sovereignty over not just Sol, but every system within 50 light-years of our home star. The Council will never. The Council will do exactly what we tell them to do, Torres said coldly. Because for the first time in galactic history, they're not the ones with the biggest fleet. Zektar stared at his sensor readings. The numbers were impossible. Humanity had built a war machine that could challenge the entire Galactic Council. Worse, they had done it using technology that was generations ahead of anything the Council possessed. How? He whispered. You really want to know? Torres asked. Fine. Every time a Council ship visited our worlds, we learned something new. Every piece of equipment you left behind taught us about your technology. Every scanner, every computer core, every communication device gave us insights into your capabilities. The Admiral's smile grew colder. But we didn't just copy your technology, Captain. We improved it. Human engineers took your designs and made them better. Human physicists solved problems your species gave up on centuries ago. Human strategists developed tactics your military leaders never imagined. Zektar felt like he was drowning in implications. The Council united dozens of species with thousands of years of technological development. How could one young race? Because we had something you don't, Torres interrupted. Motivation. You gave us the greatest possible incentive to innovate. You humiliated us in front of the entire galaxy. You forced us to abandon worlds where our children were born. You treated us like dangerous animals that needed to be caged. The human ships around Zektar's vessel began moving in perfect coordination. Their formation was so precise it looked like a dance choreographed by master strategists. Humans don't just get angry, Captain, Torres continued. We get creative. You backed us into a corner and gave us 5 years to think about what we wanted to do about it. This is what we built with that time. Zektar's communication system activated without his command. His ship was broadcasting everything it had recorded directly to the Council. The aliens would see the human fleets, the weaponized asteroids, the technological advances that should have been impossible. Why are you letting me go? Zektar asked. Because someone needs to deliver our ultimatum, Torres replied. Tell the Council that humanity is done asking for permission. Tell them we're claiming our place in this galaxy whether they like it or not. And tell them that if they want war, we'll give them war. But it won't be the primitive conflict they expect. Zektar's ship was released from whatever force had been holding it. As he prepared to flee toward the hyperspace jump point, Admiral Torres spoke one last time. Captain, there's one more thing the Council should know. What you've seen today? This is just our home system. We've been busy in other places too, as Zektar's ship jumped to hyperspace, carrying news that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. More human fleets revealed themselves throughout the outer system, each one larger and more advanced than the last. Humanity hadn't been hiding in shame. They had been preparing for war. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened 6 hours after Captain Zektar's panicked report reached the Central Worlds. The great chamber that had witnessed humanity's banishment 5 years earlier now felt like a tomb as alien representatives processed the implications of what the scout captain had discovered. The Corvan ambassador stood at his speaking position, his 4 arms gesturing wildly as he addressed the assembled species. This changes nothing, he insisted, though his voice carried a note of desperation. They're still trapped in their system. We control the hyperspace lanes. We control galactic commerce. They cannot threaten us from their isolated corner of space. The Zephyrian Chancellor's form pulsed with agitated energy. Captain Zektar's sensor readings suggest otherwise. The humans have built a fleet larger than our combined forces. Impossible, the Threx representative clicked. No single species could accomplish such a feat. Their technology was primitive when we banished them. Was it? The Veltar collective spoke in perfect unison, their hive mind processing information faster than any individual consciousness. We may have underestimated human adaptive capabilities. The debate was interrupted when every light in the chamber began to flicker. Holographic displays throughout the vast space started showing interference patterns. Then, as hundreds of alien representatives watched in growing alarm, every piece of Council technology simultaneously displayed the same image. The flag of Earth filled every screen, but it was changed. The familiar blue and green sphere now sat at the center of a silver starburst, surrounded by words that seemed to burn with their own light. Terran sovereignty. The chamber fell silent as President Marcus Webb's voice filled the space, calm and implacable despite the fact that no human ship should have been able to penetrate Council communication networks. Honorable Council members, Webb began, his tone carrying the weight of absolute certainty. Humanity formally withdraws recognition of your authority and declares the establishment of the Terran sovereignty. As of this moment, we claim dominion over all systems within a 50 light-year radius of Sol. The alien delegates erupted in outrage. Clicks, whistles, harmonics, and sounds no human throat could make filled the chamber. But Webb's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. You may consider this an act of war. We consider it a long overdue correction to an unjust status quo. For too long, this galaxy has been ruled by species who achieved spaceflight when our ancestors were still discovering fire. You've grown comfortable in your superiority, complacent in your power, convinced that your technological advantages make you untouchable. The displays shifted to show human fleets emerging from hyperspace at the edges of dozens of Council worlds. The ships appeared like ghosts materializing from the void, their sleek hulls reflecting starlight in ways that suggested technology far beyond anything the aliens had seen before. But the fleets were not attacking. They simply waited in perfect formation, their presence a clear message that humanity could reach any world in Council space whenever they chose. Impossible, the Corvan ambassador shouted. Our monitoring stations would have detected any fleet movement. Our early warning systems. Your early warning systems have been compromised for months, Webb's voice continued. Every piece of technology you left behind on our abandoned worlds contained hidden monitoring devices. We've been watching your military movements, studying your defensive strategies, and mapping your communication network since the day you banished us. The Zephyrian Chancellor's form flickered with barely contained energy. Your primitive vessels are no match for Council technology. We have defenses you cannot imagine. Webb's laugh echoed through the chamber, cold and filled with dark amusement. Your defenses rely on technology we've been studying for 5 years. Every ship you sent to monitor our quarantine gave us new insights. Every scanner, every computer, core, every communication device taught us about your capabilities. The truth was beginning to dawn on the assembled aliens. The humans had not been cowering in their home system. They had been learning, adapting, improving. We reverse-engineered your shields and made them stronger, Webb continued. We studied your weapons and built better ones. We analyzed your tactics and developed countermeasures you never thought possible. Most importantly, we did something no Council species has done in centuries. We innovated. The chamber's emergency lighting activated as more Council systems began failing. Not crashing exactly, but responding to commands they had never been programmed to accept. Human code was spreading through galactic networks like a virus, taking control of systems that should have been completely secure. You made 2 critical errors, Webb's voice carried on relentlessly. First, you assumed that forcing us to retreat would break our spirit. Instead, it focused our resolve. Second, you failed to understand what humanity does when cornered. We don't just survive, we evolve. The displays showed the true scope of human preparation. Fleets stationed throughout the galaxy, mobile fortresses that could crack planets, weapons platforms hidden in the void between stars. The Sol system had become a massive shipyard that produced warships faster than the Council could count them. But the most shocking revelation was the technology itself. The human ships moved with impossible grace, their hulls rippling with adaptive armor that seemed almost alive. Their weapons fired energy beams that cut through space in ways that violated known physics. This is madness. The Threx representative clicked frantically. The Council has maintained galactic peace for 10,000 years. You cannot simply declare independence from the established order. Watch us, Webb replied simply. The Veltar collective spoke with unusual emotion in their synchronized voices. What do you want from us? Recognition, Webb answered. The Terran sovereignty offers one chance for peaceful coexistence. Acknowledge our independence, withdraw from our claimed territory, and establish new diplomatic relations based on equality, rather than condescension. And if we refuse, the Corvan ambassador demanded, then you'll discover why human military doctrine seemed so primitive to you, Webb said. We don't fight wars to prove points or establish dominance. We fight wars to win them completely and permanently. The displays shifted again, showing detailed tactical analyses of every major Council fleet. Defensive positions that had been secrets for centuries were laid bare. Ship movements that should have been undetectable were tracked with perfect precision. We know where every one of your fleets is positioned, Webb continued. We know the capabilities of every ship class in your navies. We know which species are your strongest allies and which ones are secretly planning to abandon you if a real war begins. Several alien representatives looked uncomfortable. The humans were right about the secret plans. The Council's unity was not as solid as they pretended. You have 72 hours to decide, Webb announced. Recognize the Terran sovereignty and withdraw from our claimed systems, or face the consequences of your choice. What consequences? The Chancellor demanded. The same ones you threatened us with 5 years ago, Webb replied. Economic sanctions that will cut off your access to the raw materials we now control. Technology embargoes that will prevent you from adapting to our advances. and if necessary, direct military intervention to enforce our territorial claims. The irony was not lost on anyone in the chamber. Humanity was using the Council's own playbook against them. The difference, Webb added, is that when we make threats, we have the power to carry them out. The transmission ended, leaving the Council in stunned silence. The displays returned to normal, but the message was clear. Humanity had not just survived their banishment. They had used it to become something the galaxy had never seen before. Outside the chamber's great windows, the stars themselves seemed different. Each point of light might hide a human fleet. Every system might contain new weapons that could reshape the balance of galactic power. The Corvin ambassador finally spoke, his voice barely a whisper. What have we done? The Zephyrian Chancellor's form had dimmed to barely visible translucency. We created our own replacement. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Galactic Council faced a challenge they were not sure they could overcome. The young species they had dismissed as too dangerous to trust had become something far more dangerous. Equals who no longer asked for permission. The age of human ascendancy had begun. The Council's response came exactly 71 hours and 59 minutes after humanity's ultimatum expired. The largest military force ever assembled in galactic history dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Sol's system in perfect formation. 2,000 warships representing every major species in the Council stretched across space like a metal constellation. Admiral Cathara of the Luminos Collective commanded the flagship from her energy bridge. Her form crackled with barely contained power as she studied the tactical displays. This fleet represented the combined might of species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia. Surely it was enough to crush one upstart race that had grown too bold. Attention, human vessels, Cathara broadcast on all frequencies. You will stand down immediately and surrender your leadership for trial. Your illegal declaration of independence violates galactic law. Failure to comply will result in the complete sterilization of your system. The response came not from any military commander, but from President Webb himself, broadcasting from Earth. Admiral Cathara, you're addressing a sovereign nation that has committed no crime except refusing to bow to your authority. If you want a war, we'll accommodate you. But understand this is not the same humanity you banished 5 years ago. Cathara's energy form pulsed with contempt. Your bravado is admirable but futile. Our fleet outnumbers yours 10 to 1. We have weapons that can crack planets and shields that have never been breached. Surrender now and we may show mercy to your civilian population. Admiral. Webb's voice carried calm certainty. You're making the same mistake everyone makes when they encounter humanity for the first time. You're assuming this is our full strength. The space around the Council fleet suddenly erupted with new contacts. Human ships materialized from seemingly empty void, not dozens or hundreds, but thousands. Sleek predators that moved like living things dropped their stealth fields to reveal a force that dwarfed even the massive Council armada. But the real shock came when the asteroid belt itself began to move. What the Council had assumed were mining platforms and defensive stations revealed their true nature. Mobile fortress worlds bristling with weapons that made their dreadnoughts look like toys began accelerating toward the engagement zone. Ceres had become a battle station the size of a small moon, its surface covered with railgun installations that could punch holes through capital ships. "My God," whispered the Threx tactical officer, his compound eyes reflecting impossible readings. "They've weaponized their entire system." Vesta moved like a metal planet, its surface opening to reveal launch bays that disgorged clouds of fighter craft. The small ships moved at impossible speeds, their formations so precise they looked like flocks of mechanical birds. Admiral Torres's voice cut through the chaos as her flagship materialized directly in front of the Council formation. "Council fleet, you are now surrounded and outgunned by a factor of 5 to 1. We've been tracking your approach for weeks. Every ship in your formation is targeted by at least 3 of ours." Cathara's form flickered with uncertainty as her sensors painted the true scope of humanity's preparation. The Council fleet was trapped in a sphere of human ships that had appeared from hyperspace, stealth positions, and hidden installations throughout the system. Worse, their own hyperspace drives were offline. Some kind of jamming field that her engineers couldn't identify had trapped the entire council force in normal space. "This is impossible," Cathara protested. "How did you build all this without our knowledge?" "Simple," Torres replied, her voice carrying cold amusement. "You gave us 5 years of peace, unlimited resources from our own system, and the galaxy's greatest motivator, spite. Did you really think humanity would just sit quietly after being humiliated? We're the species that turned warfare into an art form before we could even leave our own planet." The tactical displays showed the horrifying truth. Every council ship was locked in the targeting computers of multiple human vessels. Weapons that operated on unknown principles hummed with barely contained energy. The most advanced fleet in galactic history had been outmaneuvered by a species they considered primitive. President Webb's voice returned, addressing the entire council force. "Admiral Cathara, you now face a choice. You can order your fleet to attack and watch it be obliterated in the first truly one-sided space battle in galactic history, or you can do what the Council should have done 5 years ago. Treat humanity as equals. We need time to consider—" Cathara began. "No," Webb interrupted sharply. "You need 30 seconds to order your fleet to stand down and withdraw to a safe distance. After that, we'll assume hostile intent and respond accordingly. The Terran sovereignty doesn't bluff." Around the Council fleet, human weapons began charging. Energy signatures spiked across the spectrum as systems the aliens couldn't understand prepared to fire. The mobile asteroids moved into optimal firing positions with mathematical precision. Cathara looked at her tactical displays and saw certain death written in cold numbers. Her fleet was outgunned, outmaneuvered, and trapped. The humans had turned the Sol system into a massive weapon pointed at the heart of Council power. "All ships," she transmitted with defeated resignation, "stand down. Withdraw to minimum safe distance." As the Council fleet retreated in disorder, President Webb delivered humanity's final message to the galaxy. For 10,000 years, the Galactic Council has maintained peace through superior technology and overwhelming force. Today that age ends. The galaxy has a new power to reckon with, and we will not be dismissed or ignored. The human fleet moved with perfect coordination as the alien ships limped away. Each formation demonstrated tactical capabilities that surpassed anything the Council had ever achieved. "We tried cooperation and were rebuffed," Webb continued. "We tried isolation and were threatened. Now we offer one last option: coexistence between equals. The Terran sovereignty claims its place among the stars not as supplicants begging for acceptance, but as conquerors who choose mercy." In the observation deck of Luna Station, Dr. Vasquez stood beside President Webb, watching the alien fleet disappear into hyperspace. The most powerful military force in galactic history had been defeated without firing a single shot. "Think they'll be back?" she asked. Webb smiled grimly as human ships patrolled the space lanes of the newest sovereign power in the galaxy. "Eventually, but next time they'll come as diplomats, not conquerors. Humanity has finally taken its rightful place in this galaxy." Outside the viewport, the solar system buzzed with activity as human fleets returned to their stations. Mobile fortresses settled back into their orbits. The weapon platforms that had been hidden throughout the system resumed their patient watch. But the message had been sent to every species in the galaxy. Earth was no longer the isolated world of a banished race. It was the capital of a sovereignty that had proven itself stronger than the combined might of the ancient council. The Corvan ambassador would receive word of the defeat within hours. The species that had pushed hardest for humanity's banishment would learn that their actions had created something far more dangerous than they could have imagined. Other alien races would reconsider their allegiances. The younger species that had been denied council membership would see that there was now an alternative to begging for acceptance from the established order. And throughout the galaxy, human colonies that had been abandoned 5 years earlier would receive a simple message: "Come home. Earth remembers its children." The age of human ascendancy had begun with a demonstration of power that would echo through the stars for generations. Humanity had been banished from the Council as a dangerous young species that needed to be controlled. They had returned as conquerors who chose to show mercy. The galaxy would never be the same.